This sighting took place in September 2003, about 8 miles south-southeast of Arica, Arizona, in the Cerro Colorado Mountains, about 15 to 16 miles north of the Mexico-U.S. border. Arica is between Tucson and Nogales, Arizona. The Cerro Colorado Mountains are a moderate-sized desert range rising out of the desert to a height of about 2,000 feet above the floor. There are plenty of animals there, including bighorn sheep, deer, javelina, coyotes, fox, bobcats, mountain lions, and numerous small game. Water is abundant, as this is a mostly high desert. It was about 30 minutes after sundown. Twilight would go on for an hour or more. I had finished an afternoon scouting for deer as the hunting season opens the first week of November. I was on horseback about 1.5 miles from camp up in the rocks when I found a dead bighorn sheep lamb. The thing looked like it had been killed within the hour. There was a nasty-looking bloody hole in its throat just above the chest. It appeared that the predator had eaten the heart and blood, nothing else. There was some blood on the ground, but not as much as I would have thought for that type of wound. This is not the way cats in Arizona kill and eat. I looked around and picked up the trail of a 3, possibly 4-toed animal, with each toe about the length of my finger, with a claw or nail on the end of each one. I had never seen a track like that in all the years I've spent in the wild. I remounted and followed the tracks across the face of the mountain, then down a draw. Looking down, I saw the thing about 50 feet below me headed downhill. I followed it. After a bit, it knew the horse was there and turned to face it, then saw me and moved more rapidly down the hill, but it couldn't outrun the horse. And I've hunted mountain lions on this horse, so she's used to the hunt. Its stride was about 1.5 feet upright and 5 to 8 feet when moving on 3 or 4 limbs, and possibly 15 to 20 when making a funny hop. It had a weird gait, almost a lope, but little jumps and sometimes bounds were involved. It only looked back at me 3 times that I saw. It finally got down to a steep rocky area that is full of cracks, crevices, and holes between the boulders. In the thing went. I circled around to the other side in hopes of picking its trail back up, but it had disappeared in the rocks. In all, I had it in sight for about 10 minutes and covered about a half a mile. The thing looked like a cross between the creature from the Black Lagoon and a rhesus monkey. It moved on both 2, 3, and 4 legs and arms. It stood about 3.5 to 4 feet tall when standing and weighed, I would guess, about 50 to 60 pounds. It had large lemur-like eyes, brown skin, possibly fine fur, a large bald or hairless head, and large buttocks and thick hind limbs. When I say it looked like a cross between the creature from the Black Lagoon, it's because of the protrusions along its back. Not spikes, because they were flexible and they moved as it ran, almost like 4 folding hand fans opening and closing along the pleats. It had claws or long gray nails on at least 3 of the digits on the left front and rear. It had more of a snout than a nose. I didn't see any teeth. It had a dead meat smell, but not rotten meat, no doubt because it had just fed. I returned to the lamb the next morning, and it was still there. Now that is truly unnatural, as the area has lots of coyotes, fox, bobcats, mountain lions, and badgers. All are carrion and meat eaters, and none have even gotten close to the kill. I watched with binoculars later as the buzzards found and began eating it. I went to the boulders, but could find no further evidence of the thing. I have seen a lot in my day. I've even been followed by a jaguar. I've lived most of my life outside the city in the Arizona desert, and have never seen anything alive or dead that slightly resembles the thing I followed. In the summer of 1995, I witnessed a strange animal chasing a small deer in Kenilworth Common, Warwickshire, UK. Kenilworth Common is a wooded area in Warwickshire connected to a vast rural network in the Midlands by fields, forest, farmland, and a disabled railway track. Several friends and myself were in Kenilworth Common at a small grassy clearing within the trees. It was late summer, around 10:30 at night, but it was still light and still warm. We heard a lot of commotion around us, and from the cover of the foliage, a small deer emerged at fast pace into the clearing, chased by another animal at a tail's length behind. This other quadrupedal animal was larger than the small deer, approximately 1.5 meters in length including tail, and 0.75 meters from ground to shoulder, and resembled reports of El Chupacabra. It didn't have the large alien-like eyes given in accounts of this mysterious creature of myth, but instead small, black, and lifeless. Large needle-like teeth were apparent, filling its mouth, and it had what appeared to be spines of some sort covering the length of its back. It had the frame of a large greyhound and ran with similar speed and agility, but its front and rear limbs appeared to be disproportionate. Rear legs appeared larger and more muscular. Both animals appeared shocked to emerge into the clearing, and after about 10 seconds, zigzag dashed about the clearing. The two continued their chase back under the cover of the trees and into shadow. Through discussing the events with the parties present, and through giving accounts to others, it has been speculated that this could have been a large but malnourished dog with mangy dreadlocked coat. I accept this as a viable possibility. Nonetheless, several small dogs have been reported missing in Kenilworth Common, and there has been a steady decline in the number of deers inhabiting the area, their bodies presenting with their blood completely sucked from their body and their hearts missing. I consider it possible this hungry, vicious dog, or whatever it is, may be responsible. When I was a kid, I remember my uncle having a pig farm in the countryside in Hawaii. On one particular night, he had a small get-together with my dad and some of my other uncles. It was fine until it got pitch black and cold as hell. They went inside, and about 15 minutes later the pig started going crazy and squealing out of control. My uncle and dad peeked out the window, thinking it was a thief. My uncle got his shotgun ready when, boom, something had landed on it. And I can tell you that we have no known predators that can make an impact like that in Hawaii. The two of them looked out their window and stood freaked out of their minds. It looked like a gargoyle. My dad described it as a hairy beast with wings, huge claws, and eyes that were red as fire. This thing entered the pen and moved around. My uncle passed out, and my dad just stayed down. The next morning, the two of them went to check on the pigs. Amazingly, all of the pigs still remained, with the exception of two. Both lay dead on the ground. Upon inspection, my uncle found some freaky results. 2 big holes on the neck, drained of all fluid, and the weirdest part, when he opened them up, none of the organs were there. The only other marks left behind were some huge rips in the roof of the pen. This creature was never seen again, until a hunting trip 3 years later in a valley by a friend of mine and myself. We left our catch and watched it swoop down and take it. To this day, my dad refuses to talk about it. I still choose not to believe what I saw. This happened on May 13th of 2006 in San Antonio, Texas. On this day, My friend was having a family celebration in which 2 other guys and I were invited. We had dinner and then decided to spend the night in a tent. Our tent had 5 windows, one right about where I was going to sleep. About 50 yards from our tent was a chicken coop filled with about 2 dozen chickens. We all fell asleep around 12:30. One of the other 2 men woke the rest of us up with a scream. I continued to lie down, listening to his story about why he screamed, with my head leaning slightly against the side of the tent. Then, unexpectedly, I was hit in the head with 3 sharp nails. Each of these objects were outside the tent. I got up and looked out the small tent window, only to see a small creature running on 2 feet away from the tent. It ran up to a tree and hid behind it. Then it popped its head out from behind the tree, and I saw 2 big yellowish, reddish eyes staring directly at me, which made me feel stunned and dazed, like I was in a dream or something. After a couple of minutes of hearing the creature run by the tent over and over again, I realized it was stalking us. I told my friends what I saw, and we decided to make a run for our trucks. One of the guys slowly unzipped the tent, but when it was nearly open, he yelled and fell backward on top of me. He said it was standing in front of him, staring at him, and then he said, "The quills on its back went straight up when it saw me." We tried it again, and this time we all darted out of the tent, full running speed. But when we neared the trucks, I slipped and fell in some grass. Everyone else ran by me, leaving me behind. I got up and started running again, but this time I could hear the creature charging after me, directly behind me. I managed to get there and jump in the back of the truck, and we drove off. The next day we came back for our stuff and found 14 dead chickens, all mutilated with no blood. We also found footprints with 3 toes and claws. And where I got hit in the head up against the tent were 3 claw marks that slashed through the tent and left gashes in my head. I've never spoken of this story until now with anyone besides those friends.